We are back talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates. They won today, take on the Cubs tomorrow over at PNC Park. But it's interesting this week, we saw Juan Nicasio released, signed by Philadelphia. Many levels to this. Tim Benz, I want to start with this one. For $600,000, he was one of their better pitchers. How do they do that? Why do they do that? And the message is to me that they're just cheap and don't want to pay anything.
Yeah, classic case of taking a straight line and making it crooked. Just do what you've always done, Neil Huntington. Salary dump a guy for a prospect and then oversell the core that you still have that the prospect is worth a darn. They've been doing this forever. I mean, I give you the example of Jesse Biddle. Do you remember Jesse Biddle from Philadelphia that they got?
Yes.
This is the guy that had Tommy John, a quad injury, whooping cough, and had been concussed by hailstones. And they still had some of their core audience convinced that he was going to be something. I know Neil poo-pooed the notion of getting the other teams, what do you say today, 51st best prospect or something like that, and bring him here, and why not just save the money entirely? Well, yeah, you could save the money, but now you've created a major PR headache. They've actually ticked off the core that remained supporting them as a management team.
I sort of find the initial prospect of them basically throwing shade at a competitor, rhymes with Cubs, by making this move with Nicasio. I'm sort of in on that. I mean, to me, that's sort of a little gamesmanship on their part. And you know what? If they trade for a prospect, they're still saving $600,000. However, everything they do is viewed through the prism that Nutting is cheap. And because his track record has been over the years that they're not going to invest and they're going to save money when they can. So this is sort of the fallout. More alarming to me was Neil's InfoWars-esque, explanation today that maybe the other team leaked it and it was basically calling it fake.
Why does that matter?
Who cares?
Why does that even matter?
Because I think you're playing into perceptions on other players when they come here. I mean, if I'm in that clubhouse right now, I'm sitting there looking at what happened with Nicasio. They didn't even do him a solid by trying to find a contender for him. And if I'm a free agent, look, they're only going to get free agents that this is sort of like the last resort, right? If they're going to get any sort of top-end guys that are trying to hold on. But I think that can play a factor in decision-making in free agency if guys are going to be like, if it doesn't work out, are they going to take care of me? And that's unfortunately the message that this sends.
Yeah, but the statement today is what really gets me. It's like, were Pirates fans going to wake up and then they didn't know Juan Nicasio was playing for the Phillies? They're not going to ask why. Like, we're not going to find out what happened after the fact. What the heck does it matter if somebody leaked something? It's going to happen anyway. Fact of the matter is you let your second best bullpen arm basically walk for nothing. We can go through the minutia here, but it's going to happen. Whether or not it gets leaked, whether or not they blare it rolling down the street, it doesn't matter. They still let him go for nothing.
Yeah, you know what? They really need to come out and say where this $600,000 is going to make people feel better. Show us where it is. Like, I don't know. Tell us the team jet needs a new engine, or the Pirate Parrot needs a new costume, or they need to do upgrades of the shrubbery in center field. Something.
I hear there's an eighth spring involved. I hear there's an eighth spring involved in this $600,000.
I don't care what it is. Just tell us where the money is going for, so we can say this much time of Juan Nicasio versus what you're using the money for, and maybe then people can wrap their arms around it. But until then, I like what Will said before about the InfoWars analogy that he made there. It just feels like Bob Nutting is hawking milkshakes in between segments, or in his case, games here.
Let's talk about the management moving forward now. So far, everybody unsigned. Should they be signed, Jason, or do you think it's time to part company?
I mean, I would try everything I possibly could to keep Clint Hurdle around. If I'm Clint Hurdle, I am going to run. I don't know, take a jet, do something to get out of this crazy mess. Why would you want to be a part of this? You're trying to compete with teams like the Cubs, and you're either GM or owner or whomever is ultimately responsible for the Juan Nicasio fiasco, and you're worrying about $600,000. No thanks. I would not do it if I was Clint Hurdle. I'm less clear on Neil Huntington and the motivation there. Before the season, I would have agreed and said they need to do whatever they can to keep him. But based on this Nicasio thing and some other stuff that we keep hearing about, I'd have my questions there too.
Yeah, I'm with Jason on this. I think he's right. I think this should be asked from a different perspective. Do they want to stay if these are the parameters under which they have to work? That would be my response.
I mean, if you look at the Cubs series in Chicago this week, is there any indication that they're going to be able to close the gap on them before McCutchen's contract is up and before they really have to pay Garrett Cole? I mean, the answer there is obviously no. So you're looking at, if you want to commit to a 5 to 6 year rebuild, which Neil, to me, has, since he's done it, he's earned the right to do it again. But if I'm Clint, I'm 60 years old, I've got young children. He's talked about this. He's got interest outside of baseball. Do I want to stick around through the next 3 or 4 years while you try to rebuild it? No. So, I mean, if I agree with you guys. If Clint, if he doesn't want to stay, you know, just walk. And I think Clint will be fine.
Real quick, you mentioned Andrew McCutchen there. We seem to always talk about this, but Tim Benz, he is going through a funk right now, not dissimilar to what he did to start this season. How will that impact what they do or what he will do?
Neil Huntington suggested it wouldn't. Neil Huntington suggested today that what happens in September after a bad August wouldn't influence their decision about whether or not to pick up his option. So now, of course, I believe that's going to influence whether or not they pick up his option. I'll just believe the opposite. But it makes it a lot easier to sell if he stinks in September after a bad August. The Pirates can then just turn around and say, well, the middle months where he was really good, that was the outlier over the course of the last 2 years.
But what if we look at this from a different perspective, too? Look at it if you're McCutchen. Do you want to be a part of this? Do you want to sign up and stay here? Or do you go into your boss's office and say, get rid of me, send me somewhere? I don't know if they're going to agree to that, but if you're McCutchen, aren't you agitated at all of this? I would be.
I mean, from a business standpoint, they're absolutely going to exercise the option and then try to find a taker for him if they can. I mean, the problem is now, look, if they said the market wasn't great for him at the deadline when he hit, what, 400 in June and July, what's it going to be if he hits 215 in September? To me, the window, I mean, I was on here a month ago talking about they should have tried to find a taker for him. That's my bigger concern, is what is his trade value going to be if he goes into a funk in the last month of the season?
That's a good point. All right, now it's time to go around the horn for our Smooth Moves segment, brought to you by Armina Stone, Pittsburgh's largest supplier of smoothest granite, marble, and quartz countertops. Armina Stone. So let's start with you, Jason Mackey. What is your smooth move?
I'm going to go with the guy who was smooth his entire time in Pittsburgh, even though the exit was a little bit weird. Matt Cullen had the Stanley Cup last week, took it to a couple places around his home in Minnesota, and used it for a bunch of good. Took it to a bunch of sick kids, some developmentally disabled kids playing baseball, just all class all the time. He showed it with how he handled the Stanley Cup.
My smooth move will be Billy Hamilton's great diving catch in the warning track in center field last night. Not smooth getting picked off base today, but least smooth of all, two candidates. The Wyoming punter who swung and missed with his leg on the kick, which was hilarious, and the Florida A&M equipment manager who cost his team 3 timeouts, actually 4 timeouts, because he brought illegal uniforms for them to wear. Not smooth move of the week.
For me, it's got to be Saquon Barkley. The guy was electric yesterday. If I'm Pat Narduzzi, I'm already losing sleep over what looms Saturday in Happy Valley. The guy looks like a Heisman candidate and very well maybe be one by next Saturday afternoon.
Beautiful segue, Will. Thank you very much for setting me up with that, because we have Penn State coming up. But that is our Smooth Move segment, brought to you by Armina Stone, featuring Pittsburgh's largest indoor stone gallery of granite, marble countertops imported from all over the world to give you the smoothest countertops in the area. Score a touchdown with the new granite countertops from Armina Stone. Penn State talk next.